10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
And now, another really exciting episode of the Shy Life podcast.
Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Boy, he's not all that shy, is right.
Blimey, Governor, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Excellent.
557.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shy Life podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How you doing? I'm alright. So what's going on this episode? Well, it's actually a very important episode. It won't be one of our longest, but it is one of our most important of 2022 because it is our PRIDE48 live streaming event. It's our episode for that. It's taking place. Yes, I'm recording this before the event. You know how these things are. Things always go wrong. So I've decided this year not to do all the business with doing the introduction live. I'm just gonna start talking, and then I'm gonna finish talking. And no theme music. Well, there'll be theme music for this version. This is the podcast version, but not when I do it live. I just want to keep it as simple as possible. Things went wrong last year. Not that you probably noticed because I edited most of the wrong things out, and Nick and I recorded extra material. But Nick's not here this year. But Yeti Uncle John and Cromitty will be here to help out. And I think I might need help because, well, I've suffered quite a shock, quite a trauma. Something awful's happened, and I'm still getting over it. What's that, you ask? Well, it's the last episode of Neighbours. That's what it is. I've just seen it. Yeah. I'm finding it quite emotional to get through the day. So run the theme music. When we come back, I'll be fine. Yeah. I haven't seen the last episode yet. I'm recording this before. But anyway, by the time we do the live show, I will have seen it. But let's run the theme music. And when we come back, we'll be doing the show. Okay, run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Yes, but it's supposed to be theme song. The High Life, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
I'll go anyway if I say so.
Delicious.
Hello, campers. How are you?
You quite like a big bang, don't you, Paul?
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. I think he has.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life podcast.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
Has the Shy Life podcast no doubt? I don't think so.
It's all gooey and meaty. Yum, 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 yum.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage?
Hello. Can you hear me? Calling from London. This is the Shy Life podcast. Can you hear me? I've got my eye in the chat room, so just need to hear from somebody in the chat room that they can hear me. And we've got a busy show ahead of us. Talking about hooray! Yes, Gary and PDX. Yes, Crone. Well, that's yes, isn't it? it's an emoji, but Gary says we hear you. Toby and Lisa say we can hear you loud and clear. Well, I'm very glad to hear it. We have Matt Chubbs say, Matt says he doesn't hear me. I think you do hear me. Maybe you don't. I don't know. No, Chrissy says, hello, we hear you. Toby Lisa says, we have Kylie Wine. Ah, yes. Well, some people say they hear me and some people say they don't. So, but, well, I guess it might depend on what you're listening to me through or something. But, well, we'll push on. So, yes, this is the Shy Life podcast, and I'm the first show on the second day of the 2022, is that right? Yeah. 2022 PRIDE48 live streaming weekend. I think this must be about my 6th live streaming show, but Chrissy says some people need to refresh. So please refresh me. I need refreshment. So yes, I do. Toby and Lisa say push on that big button there. Yes. So have we been enjoying the live streaming event so far? I mean, yes, day one. I'm afraid I'm going to have to catch up with a lot of those shows as podcasts if they come out as podcasts, because in the UK we had a very big night. I hate to admit it, but it kind of fits in with what I'm going to be discussing today. Last night we in the UK, it was the very last episode after 37 years of UK favourite, but it's an Australian show, Neighbours, the show that sort of made people like Kylie Minogue and Guy Pearce and many other stars famous originally. But I'm a bit of a fan. Like most people sort of my age, sort of mid-40s to early 50s, a lot of us sort of watched that show back in the day. When we were, oh dear, now we've got silence. Refresh Discord? I'm not sure. I guess so. I guess refreshing Discord must help. Well, I'm keeping going. There it goes. Aha. Good. So yes, Neighbours was a show that a lot of people watched when we were all kids, and now it's finished after 37 years. So a lot of people who hadn't watched it for a long time watched it. And but we're not going to be talking too much about Neighbours because I know it's not a show that's big. 5:48 on TuneIn went silent on the hour. With Yeti, says Matt. I'm listening through Tuned In. You sound great, says Taylor. I'll just keep on going then. Yes. So, as I say, I was very much distracted yesterday by the last episode of Neighbours, but we're not going to talk about that because I know it's a show that's not famous in the States. What I want to talk about are shows perhaps that you love that sort of ended before their time. We're also going to have a TV quiz. Yeti Uncle John and Cromitty will be about. In fact, Cromitty, Yeti Uncle John, do you want to come and say hello to the chat room? I'll be most plumb. Yes, absolutely. Hello, chat room. Golly, I suppose it's one of them live events, Cromitty. Oh yes, I do love the live streaming events. We used to do a monthly show live, didn't we, back in the day? Oh yes, we most certainly did. Paul, are you sure you're coping okay with the end of Neighbours? Because if you're feeling a bit distraught, then just let us know. We can take over the show. If you need to sit down and have a little cry, then just let us know. Yes, we'd be absolutely, be very keen to help. We can talk to the listeners. If you want to have a big cry, then yes, you can just go and sit down. Guys, I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine. Actually, the last episode of Neighbours was upsetting. I did cry a little bit because I'm quite an emotional kind of guy. But it was a celebration. I was smiling probably more than I was sad. And Guy Pearce came back for the last episode, and he was absolutely amazing, brilliant. But I can hear a little twinge in your voice there, Paul. Did you want to cry? No, I won't cry. I won't cry. I'll not cry. We'll speak to you again later, guys. Oh yes, but we'll be here if you need us. If you need a handkerchief or a box of tissues. Okay, thanks, guys. Thank you. I need to see what's going on in the chat room. So, Yes, people are listening. Oh, yes. Troby and Lisa say, we hope Yeti Uncle John is in a fit state to broadcast live. Yes, Yeti Uncle John has a strange, I don't know quite how to describe it. Most people say if they drink alcohol, would get drunk after drinking, a few glasses of wine or a couple of pints or whatever. Yeti Uncle John gets drunk drinking fizzy water. Sparkling water, Perrier water, but no, Troby Liz, I don't think he's been drinking any sparkling water as far as he seems perfectly well, which is unusual because I think last year he turned up in the last 5 minutes or something. Last year when we did our live streaming show, we had one of our regulars, Nick, with us, but there's been train strikes in the UK. It's been difficult to get about, so yeah, that's why I'm here in my flat just outside of London with Yeti Uncle John and Cromitty and you guys in the chat room. Now we have some suggestions for shows that in a minute I'm going to there's a few lists I've seen of shows that are supposedly shows that people miss, and maybe people have got different opinions, but let's see what the chat room is suggesting. Dr. Ben Casey, I've heard of that, but is that from the 60s or 70s? That's quite an old one, isn't it? Or is there some more recent reboot? That's a suggestion by Gary in PDX. Matt from Chubs Gone Wild says, my husband and I think very fond of, very keen on Come Back Mrs. Noah, which ended after one season, far too soon. Troby and Lisa will certainly know about Come Back Mrs. Noah. I mean, I know of it. I know of its connection with Are You Being Served? I probably have seen an episode. It has a pretty bad reputation, but like a lot of those things, they're they're not half as bad as they have the reputation for. In fact, they're often really good. Now, Taylor says the reboot of One Day at a Time was amazing and cancelled way too soon. Now, I'm quite keen on soap operas of all kind. The only American soaps I've seen have been things like Dynasty and bits of Dallas, because they have been shown over here like mainstream. But I know when I've had trips over to the States that I've seen little bits of daytime soaps, and they always look like the characters are sort of, there's like 4 different scenes and everybody having conversations, and it takes about a week to have a conversation, and there's like some poor guy standing in a towel for about 3 weeks just having the same conversation. But I mean, that's great. I mean, I have watched in the past some UK soaps like Coronation Street, which I'm sure you'll have heard of, even if you've never seen any of it. But I'm a much bigger fan of Australian soaps like Neighbours, rest in peace, and Home and Away, which is about the only Australian soap that is still being shown in the UK. We're also fond of 70s and 80s soaps over here, like Prisoner Cell Block H and The Young Doctors and Sons and Daughters. They're all shows I'm very keen on. In fact, Sons and Daughters, which is kind of like the Australian version of Dynasty in a way, although it's a bit more, there's more sort of working class and upper class sort of meeting. I'd seen quite a lot of that show, but there was a whole big block in the middle that I'd never seen. But shows like that are being released on DVD in the UK and Australia, so I'm finally getting to see some soaps that I loved 30 years ago but never saw the whole run of, and that's where my money goes. But Gary says, does anyone remember Ben Casey? I'm sure if Toppy was here, I know he has mentioned that he will be showing up hopefully later on. Matt says he agrees with Taylor. Absolutely agree. I love that show, One Day at a Time. Troby and Lisa say all the bubbles in fizzy water make Yeti Uncle John swell up in unexpected ways. Yes, they do. In fact, I released another episode of my podcast, the Shy Life podcast, episode 556, I think it was. It's all about Yeti Uncle John and how he vanishes and where he gets to. He's got a new venture. He's got a new job lined up. I think. Well, no, maybe I better not say. But he has a job lined up. Gary says, I'd heard that name in years. Besides being old, I don't know why I thought I hadn't heard that. Is that about Ben Casey? I mean, of American shows, but again, I know Toppy would definitely... sorry, my cat is meowing, if you hear a strange squawking noise. Mr. Dealey, who is a regular contributor to my podcast. Yes, you are, Deals. But we're live. We're broadcasting live, man. So... Dealey is 18. He's got to that age where he just kind of wanders off and starts singing to himself. Yes, so I would say if I could have a show back, or I don't know about... it's one of those things, I don't know if I want it back now. Well, I would have liked it to have continued back in the day. I would have liked Dark Shadows to have lasted longer than... I mean, it had a good run of 5 or 6 years, but I was once asked to write an article for Dark Shadows fanzine, and they wanted me to write sort of synopses for episodes that had never been produced, but what might have happened had it continued, because it was axed in April 71. So I think I did about a year's worth of potential plot lines, but I have that kind of mind where I can where I can do that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I decided not to do the article. So I was left with all these ideas, which I think I provisionally used in some other writing project I had. But more Dark Shadows. Troby and Lisa say, hello, dearly cat. Yes, Troby and Lisa referring to Goodbye, Mrs. Noah. So Molly Sugden for the win. Cronehaven says, prefer Dr. Kildare rather than Ben Casey. I thought it was perhaps something along those lines. Gary says I used to get all the symptoms he was treating. Taylor says I think you're getting One Day at a Time and One Life to Live mixed up. One Day at a Time was a sitcom. One Life to Live was a soap. Because we don't get both, so yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I like some of the sitcoms that I have found in the last, say, 5 years, like things from the 60s, like that Girl, or Mary Tyler Moore Show, or all those sorts of shows. I don't know if they were shown in the 70s. It's quite possible they were shown when they were new in America, but maybe a little bit behind. But I would have been too young to have seen them. So I don't think they've really been repeated since. There are some American sitcoms from the 60s that certainly into the 90s were being repeated, like Bewitched and Get Smart, two shows I really love. But I don't know why those ones got shown, and I don't know if they were just a little bit safer to put on sort of earlier in the day, whereas, I don't know, Mary Tyler Moore might have been a bit more controversial, and you couldn't have put her on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because they did use things like Get Smart and Bewitched as sort of filler shows. But when I first saw them, well, I just love them. So apparently Dr. Casey was more macho than Kildare. And Matt says The Cool Kids. Is that a show, or are you just talking about Yeti Uncle John and Cromarty? Ben Casey wasn't hot or that good looking to me, says Gary. Mary Tyler Moore still holds up as a sitcom, definitely. I mean, there's so many episodes I haven't seen yet. There's just so many shows that I have never seen but want to. I've completely blanked on one that I watched recently, where they do a spoof soap opera. I've gone blank, but it was very. Matt says I just rewatched Mary Tyler Moore this year. Now let's have a look at some of these shows that on these lists. Well, these are British shows. I won't pause too much on these. I haven't heard of them, so I don't know. Utopia, Lip Service, The Fades. I've vaguely heard of The Fades. I think that's a supernatural drama. It even won a BAFTA award, which is good. Sugar Rush. That it was a sort of I don't know. About a teenager that has a crush on her best friend. Torchwood. I mean, I think that's a bit more better known if you're a fan of Doctor Who. I don't know if did Torchwood ran for like 4 seasons, and there were books and audio plays, and yeah, I mean, I guess they could definitely have got more mileage out of it, but it was a show that I kind of liked. Sometimes, not always, but see if there's any shows that that might be more sort of international. These are 7 TV shows axed just when they were getting good. Gotham, which I never watched, but that's a Fox show, so yeah, we should be on safer ground. I don't know how many seasons that ran for. I certainly heard about it. Quarry, don't know that one. Terra Nova, that was executive produced by Steven Spielberg, so surprising it wasn't a success. The Mick, I definitely not heard of that, although I recognise the picture of the actress involved. It had the lady out of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I've seen that. Everything Sucks. That only lasted for 1 season. Set in a high school. Selfie. That had Karen Gillan from Doctor Who playing Eliza Dooley, a pharmaceutical representative. It was an ABC rom-com series based on My Fair Lady. I'd never heard of that. It apparently started with good ratings and then dropped. Dollhouse. That's a Joss Whedon show. Now I do know Dollhouse. I had to buy that on DVD because it just, I don't know if it was ever shown here on normal TV, but yeah, I know Joss Whedon's a bit problematic these days, but back when I saw Dollhouse when it was relatively new, I certainly enjoyed that show and would have watched more. Let's see what the chat room says. Let's find the chat room. Oh, Paul, are you all right? You look quite emotional. No, Uncle John, I'm not feeling emotional. I mean, I'm feeling happy to be here, doing the show and talking with the chat room, and oh well, you know, I know Neighbours meant a lot to you, Paul. So I quite understand if you're like gonna sort of, you know, go over the edge. I don't think I'll be going over the edge. No, let's see what the chat room says about any of these shows. The Cool Kids was a show from a few years ago in the US with Vicki Lawrence and Leslie Jordan. It was that was a soap. Or are we talking about the programme soap? No. Gary says, I liked I Love Lucy. Jackie Gleason was the only movie star that I could recognise or remember. Now, I mean, I feel really bad about this in a way because I love female comedians probably more than I love more than male comedians, and there are various people in the UK, Victoria Wood, who's sadly no longer with us, Julie Walters, Celia Imrie, Fenton Saunders, various other people. And but I for some reason I'd never watched I Love Lucy until about 2 or 3 years ago. I bought a box set of the best episodes, and Troby and Lisa, who are in the chat room, they do a show called Round the Archives. Now, Toppie Smelly and I often do articles. I mean, sometimes I do articles by myself, but Toppie Smelly and I often do articles on American shows. We did Fantasy Island not so long ago, and we did I Love Lucy. We've done Irwin Allen. We've done The Wild Wild West. But yes, he was really shocked that I hadn't actually. I knew about I Love Lucy, but I hadn't seen much of it or any of it. And of course, watching the episodes I watched, I was in stitches. I was in tears, just laughing so much. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so I did my research for the article, and that was great fun. And I really, it's just one of those things where I still have such a big DVD collection, such a lot of things to watch. Otherwise, I probably would have gone back and watched some more. But yeah, I loved Lucy when I saw it 2 or 3 years ago. Matt says Torchwood was good until they turned it into torture porn. The season I liked is that the 4th season maybe. I found the first 2 seasons a little bit patchy. Some episodes I loved, some episodes I didn't. I liked it when Martha from Doctor Who came into it in the 2nd season. I loved the 3rd season. I thought that was like an ongoing story. I do like the ongoing stories. It's a bit like they did with Doctor Who with Flux last autumn, and had a sort of 6-part story which was connected and yet could be watched separately. And I thought that worked really well when they did it on Torchwood. It became How Much Can We Fuck Over Jack? I watched Terra Nova. It had flaws. I'm currently watching The Expanse season 4. I've not heard of The Expanse. I'm trying to think of there's a show that I've been watching on Disney Plus about like zombies, and they're not really zombies. It's from about 7 or 8 years ago. I want to say it's not called Virus. It's a one-word title, and I'm just totally blanked on it. But I mean, I'd never even heard of that show. Let me see if I can find which one I'm talking about. Watch list. Is it on my watch list? Let's hope so. No, I don't seem to have a watch list. Okay, thought I had a watch list. Anyway, maybe my awful description will remind people what show I mean. Victoria Wood, R.I.P. Genius talent. Yes. Says Matt. I like Saturday morning TV shows, says Gary, before they started showing cartoons. Sky Ranch, Lone Ranger. We still need to get into The Expanse, says TLB Tim. Hi Tim. Gary and PDX says Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. Matt says it's really good, The Expanse. Trebully say they're not really zombies is quite a good name for a show, come to think of it. It ain't bad. It's not a bad name, is it? I love the Lone Ranger as a kid, says Matt. Now, I've got a little quiz here. I don't know whether it's going to be international enough or whether it's going to be too skewed one way or another, but let's have a look. I'm going to give you some facts about Neighbours later. I know you don't know anything about it, but it's a method of teaching. You'll find out a bit more. Let's see. This seems to be a quiz that would cover. I think you'd know whether you live in the States or in the UK. So, 10 questions. Who became the new Doctor after Matt Smith's exit in the 2013 Christmas special? Who became the new Doctor Who after Matt Smith's exit in the 2013 Christmas special? Question 2. Which American sitcom features a petty criminal that makes a list of every bad thing and every person he has wronged, then begins efforts to fix them all? Which American sitcom features a petty criminal that makes a list of every bad thing and every person he has wronged, then begins efforts to fix them all? Question 3. What is the name of the fictional amateur detective played by Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote?
What is the name of the fictional amateur detective played by Angela Lansbury in Murder, She Wrote? I think we all know that one. Question 4. Which topical celebrity panel game show's theme music is News of the World by The Jam? Which topical celebrity panel game show theme music is News of the World by The Jam? I suspect that's a bit too UK. That might be a bit too UK-ish. Although Matt might know it. Depends. It's because I think it's probably a comedy panel game show. So anyway, question 5. Who played Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Who played Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Question 6. First broadcast in 1953. Name the world's longest running current affairs television programme. Toby and Lisa might get that one. I think it's although there's a lot of American shows in this quiz, I think this is ultimately probably UK, or at least set in the UK. So, question 6. Yes, first broadcast in 1953. Name the world's longest running current affairs television programme. Question 7. What was the name of the ranch in the 60s series Bonanza? What was the name of the ranch in the 60s series Bonanza? Question 8. Which 80s television soap opera featured the wealthy Channing family in the Californian wine industry? Which 80s television soap opera featured the wealthy Channing family in the Californian wine industry? 2 more questions. Question 9. Which fictional Coronation Street character joined in 1974, has married 4 times and has 3 children? I don't think that's going to be that widely known outside of the UK. Question 10. Which The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills spin-off programme focuses on a West Hollywood restaurant? Which The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills spin-off programme focuses on a West Hollywood restaurant? Do you have any answers for any of those questions? Let me check in the chat room.
You know, Paul, we could have done the quiz whilst you had a little cry.
Yes, Paul. You know, you could have had a little cry, cried into a glass of water, maybe turned it into a gin and tonic or something. Cromitty, I've never heard of such a thing. Why would I want to drink my own tears and mix it with gin? You guys, let's see what the chat room says. I'm not crying. I'm not going to be crying. Right. Let's see. To scroll back slightly. Gary says, before our family got a TV, when they first came out, I wanted to go to my grandparents or Aunt Opal. I wanted to just watch cowboy and Indian movies. And Dragnet. Daniel says Capaldi. Yes, that's the question about who took over after Matt Smith. Matt says, I love to watch gladiator movies, can't think why. Daniel says, my name is Earl. Yes, that is... I quite liked My Name is Earl, actually. That is one I did see a little bit of. But I never sort of watched the whole series. Yes, Matt says Capaldi, and yes, that is the actor that followed from Matt Smith. Daniel also says Jessica Fletcher, which was the answer of the name of the fictional amateur detective played by Angela Lansbury. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having to jump backwards and forwards. And I don't want to lose the actual answers to the quiz. Matt says, oh my goodness, Daniel's in the future. Well, you know, he has magic. Sarah Michelle Gellar, yes. Was that question 4? Question 4. Well, no, that was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The one that I didn't necessarily expect you to get was which topical celebrity panel game theme music is News of the World by The Jam. That's a show called Mock the Week. It says here Mock of the Week. I think it's called Mock the Week. So we've got Sarah Michelle Gellar. I think the current affairs programme that started in 1953 is called Panorama. I'm pretty sure that is just a UK show. Now, the name of the ranch in Bonanza, has anyone got the answer for that? Let me have a look. Yes, we have. Yes, Matt says. Matt says 60 minutes, but yeah, that was a difficult one. Panama Ponderosa, yes. Let me see. That is, yes, Ponderosa is the name of the ranch. Now, Big Valley. I don't see Big Valley. I don't know if that is an answer for something else, but it's not one of the answers on my list. So, Hoss Cartwright went to the college I finally attended, says Gary. I saw him when I was a senior in high school. He was campaigning for LBJ in Texas, Abilene. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that. There's a discussion about Peter Capaldi, whether Daniel or Matt didn't much like his doctor. It's a funny one because over here he's considered that he was very lucky that he wanted to do Doctor Who, but I never really quite clicked with him myself until his final season. I think it's because they were trying to make him a bit more weird and alien and not very nice necessarily, which they tried with Colin Baker and that hadn't really worked out either. So I know there are some people who love him, but I don't know. I was strangely just very sort of I really like Matt Smith, so maybe that didn't help. I missed Matt Smith when he left. Troby needs to say, Yeti Uncle John will try and market Paul's Tears as an energy drink or something. Oh, you are so right. Yeah, that's exactly what... Yeti Uncle John, for those who don't know, he is such an opportunist. He's sitting right there. He's such an opportunist. Anything. If he can get my cat to do painting, he has pet magpies. If he can get them to do painting, he makes computers out of cheese. He has these great ideas. Exactly, Paul. They are great ideas. Some of them are not as great as others. Exactly. So yeah, Troby needs to say, still wish they'd done an episode of Murder, She Wrote in which Jessica was revealed to be a witch. Could have done a Murder, She Wrote Bewitched crossover, except that the timelines don't quite work out for that. Gary says, we had a birthday party for one of the Rainbow Vista residents this week. They were talking about movies and movie stars that I hadn't seen or know who they were talking about. Then today I'm really getting into talking about old TV shows. I went to Hardin Simmons. Yeah, Matt says Capaldi did a couple of guest spots on Vicar of Dibley when he was young. She wanted to marry him. David Tennant is my favourite Doctor Who. Well, I'm glad that David Tennant is doing some new episodes at the moment. And I do really like him, but it's very hard for me to like any of the current Doctors or any of the 21st century Doctors more than the ones I grew up with from the 70s and 80s, such as Tom Baker or Peter Davison or John Pertwee or Patrick Troughton. I just had a lot more time watching their episodes, and then all those years when there was no Doctor Who on TV. So, yeah. Gary says not sure what Capaldi is. Peter Capaldi, he's a British actor who played Doctor Who about 10 years ago now, possibly. So I think I should let's see. I think apparently Yeti Uncle John and Comedy want to have a private word with you in the chat room. I'm just going to have a quick drink of water whilst they have a word. Please don't let them take over the show. Yes. Okay, guys, come and have a word with them. Oh, thank you. Go on then, Paul. Is he gone? I think he's gone, yes. Listeners, we just want to, we're concerned. Paul is very, he's very much a fan of the TV program Neighbours, and I know you've been speaking about shows that we should go on longer. I mean, 37 years, it's a long time for any show to go, but that doesn't mean that Paul should not be upset. No, we understand why Paul is upset. It's just we think he might be holding it back. We think that maybe that he's not letting his real feelings come out. And if his feelings come out, then we'd be happy to take over the show for the last 23 minutes. I mean, to be honest, we thought he'd been inconsolable and we'd have to take over the whole show. But he seems to be holding up very well. But I think it's just an act. I think it might just be an act too. But anyway, oh dear. He's coming back again. Oh yes. Well, just listeners, keep an eye on him. I know you can't see him, but if you hear a little warble in his voice or there's some sort of upset, then you'll understand. Just give us a shout and we'll come and take over. Yes. Guys, you're not still going on about Neighbours, are you? No. Yes. No. Whatever. Get on with it. Charming. What facts can I give you about Neighbours? Gosh, no. There's 49 questions. No, we can. I haven't finished giving you the answers to these quizzes. First, we should do that. The 80s television soap opera featuring the Channing family is Falcon Crest. The fictional character in Coronation Street is Gail. She's got married loads of times. At least one of her husbands was a serial killer, but which makes me sit up and notice because I love a good serial killer on a soap opera. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills spin-off was called Vanderpump Rules, which I've never heard of. So I want to do another quiz, but we might run out of time before we get a chance. Let me tell you some facts about Neighbours, a show that you've very rarely, probably very few of you have seen. But yes, as I say, the actor Guy Pearce, possibly best known for Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, started out on Neighbours. He's been on loads of other films, but Neighbours was inspired, even though Neighbours is Australian, and Coronation Street and Crossroads are British soaps. The guy who created Neighbours was called Reg Watson, and he created some British soaps before he went and created some Australian soaps. Now I told you that the show lasted for 37 years. Well, talking about shows that get cancelled and we wish they'd continued. Well, Neighbours nearly didn't continue. After less than a year, it was axed, and after about 8 months, and the channel it was showing on pulled the plug, destroyed all the sets, but another channel took it over, and that's when it got really popular in the UK. And one of the reasons apparently that it became popular is that the BBC controller, so like the head of the BBC at the time, the head of the BBC's daughter was a fan, but at one time it was only shown during the day when people were at school, when kids were at school, and the BBC controller's daughter complained to her dad and said, can't you put it on at a time when we could watch it? So they did, and that's when it became really, really popular. And there was a wedding. The thing, I don't know if you have this with any shows you like. If there's a show you like where, it was really popular at the start, things like Twin Peaks and things like that, they were very, very popular, but then they continued and they were less popular. But with Neighbours, it was very, very successful in the first few years. Like, 2 characters got married and nearly a third of the UK population watched the show. It was massive, but by the time it finished, it was a very small percentage of people still watching it. But I watched it for the last 10 years, and it was a great show still. And yet the common perception is that it was great at the start when it was getting big ratings, and it was good, but I don't think it was better. Yeah, so sometimes these shows that get big ratings at the start, it's not necessarily the best episodes. I don't think. Sometimes if you stick around with a show, once it's jumped the shark, as they say. But Yeah, there are lots of other facts I could give you, but I don't think we're going to have time for those. So what we might do is there's one more TV quiz. But let's see what the chat room's been saying. So, yes, Gary says, I've never watched any Doctor Who. Well, that's fine. That's fine. It's a very big show. It's like the Star Trek of the UK, really. It's something, it's approaching its 60th anniversary, and it is massive in the UK and has been for many years. Although it's gone through periods of, being less popular and then being popular again. Matt says, I have great respect for the early Doctors. I started watching the early episodes last year, made it up to Pertwee before taking a break. Have you? Well, the thing is, have you seen any Pertwee, or have you just got to where he comes in? Because you're about to enter the colour episodes, and I don't know how you get on with black and white stuff. Because the early episodes are a lot more. It's a bit like watching Dark Shadows. The early episodes of Dark Shadows are great, but some people didn't get on with them so well, because So some of us, we're so used to sort of watching colour TV, black and white. Toppy will be cross with me, but sometimes black and white TV is an acquired taste. Truby needs to say, ahoy, Yeti, Uncle John and Cromitty. You should encourage Paul to let it all hang out. Well, we have done that on the Shy Life podcast. We did do a charity event where we removed all of our clothes for charity, and we raised about don't know, was it £3 or something? Yeah, I'm quite happy to take my clothes off on audio. Yeah, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But Taylor says, did no one get Falcon Crest as an answer? I didn't see anybody. No, I didn't see anyone say Falcon Crest. I kind of thought they would, but maybe I did sort of shoot rather a lot of questions all in one go. So Taylor, you got it. Got the answer in just under the wire, at least as far as tuned in is concerned. Yeah, absolutely. Matt says he never watched Falcon Quest. Dallas. Matt says Dynasty was the one I watched. I rewatched it about 5 years ago. Yeah, the only episodes of Dynasty I saw at the time, and I think we probably had them in the UK roughly around the same time as they were screened. I watched the very last episode because, I don't know, I just thought, oh, this Dynasty thing's finishing, I ought to watch it. Obviously, I kind of knew what Dynasty was, but my parents weren't really into soap operas. My mum did like Neighbours, but certainly not the big American soaps. We didn't watch those, but I was beginning to get a bit of an interest by the time that Dynasty finished. And the last episode of Dynasty I thought was great, because even though I mean, obviously I knew who Joan Collins was, but it was a great episode to watch, even if you didn't know anything about the characters, because people were falling off balconies, they were getting buried underground. There was all sorts of excitement, and that was perfect. I came back and watched the mini-series a year or two later, and that wasn't as good. But I tried to watch the last episode of Dallas, but for somebody who hadn't watched Dallas, it was difficult to kind of work out what was going on. But we did have Falcon Crest over here, but I don't know when that was on. I feel that might have been shown during the day, and so maybe I might have seen bits in school holidays and things. But I wish we had a channel full of these programmes. There are lots of more obscure. Is it Dead of Night? It's from the 70s and 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. I've seen clips of that with like a psychopathic puppet or something, which is very much my aesthetic. Yeah, that sounds. I mean, somebody was piloting the puppet. He wasn't running around unmanned, as it were. But I think it's Dead of Night. Gosh, I mean, there's quite a lot of episodes of these shows on like YouTube, of course. And wow, I spend all day. I I'm doing my podcast sort of dawn till dusk or dusk till dawn, not quite, but it's difficult finding the time. Difficult finding the time. Matt says, I've seen poetry episodes. He was the first Doctor I remember as a kid watching random episodes on our public TV station. Of course, Tom Baker is a very accessible Doctor. Daniel says, I forgot the name of Falcon Crest. I just kept saying that Lorenzo Lamas show. Matt says his dad Fernando Lamas was sexy. I'll have to Google him. I don't know the name, but I'll take your word for it. But what's going on? Well, I was thinking, are we going to do a quiz? I don't think we've got time for you to do a quiz. Ding the Bell are coming on in about 10 minutes or so, maybe less. So we had a quiz. I'm sorry, guys. Yes. Well, we just want to say that we're quite proud of you for keeping it together, this show. Oh dear, who's that? Dealey the cat. Hello, Dealey the cat. Anyway, Paul, we were just going to say we're very proud of you for holding it together, because you're obviously very upset about the end of Neighbours, a show that you love dearly and which ran for 37 years, and we're really quite proud of you, aren't we, Cromitty? Yes, we're quite proud of you, Paul. I mean, I like Neighbours too. I'm quite sad that it's ending, and oh dear, I feel quite a wave of emotion coming now. Yes. So do I. I think I'm going to have a sit down. Oh, for goodness sake, guys. Please sit down. We haven't got much long. Oh dear. Sorry, chat room. There they are, worrying that I wasn't going to be able to hold it together, and the pair of them are sobbing in the corner. Seems like they were the bigger Neighbours fans after all. I don't know. I have to work with these people. Dealey says, no, not Dealey. Dealey says, meow. Toby and Lisa say Dealey is heckling again. Oh yeah, he is. Just gone into the kitchen to have some food. He'll emerge and definitely have something to say. Let me just, as we haven't got time for another quiz, I should just quickly run down. We have Ding the Bell following this show. We have Greetings from Nowhere. Don't Do Disney. Foul Monkeys. RuPaul's Drag Race recap. Yes. Are you going to be listening to that one? I didn't know you watched RuPaul. Mix Minus at 8. Pod is my co-pilot at 9. Shady Small Town Tea at 10. Throwing Down at 11. Satosphere at 12. And then Late Night Tales with Donna Sugars at 1 a.m. So, yeah, we've got a busy lineup ahead of us today. I hope you'll be tuning into some of those. I know some of you will just be sitting in the chat room till 1 a.m, which is 6 a.m. where I am, but there we go. Back to the chat room. No, that's not the chat room. Back to the chat room. Yes, Matt says Liam Hemsworth was on Neighbours. He was. Actually, I didn't even realise there were 3 Hemsworth brothers, but all 3 of them were on Neighbours at some point, and to differing levels of focus. Some of them had bigger parts than others, as it were. I see there's a picture of Fernando Lamas in the chat room now. I presume that's Fernando Lamas. Very nice. Dealey's heckling again. We had that. Gary says, I think Howdy Doody was on Saturday morning. Cronehaven mentions Last of the Summer Wine. Well, that's a very famous UK sitcom. That ran for probably 37 years. It certainly ran for a very long time. No longer running now, but I suppose some of these shows must be on BritBox. I know Jay the Horn Club, I was talking to him, he was saying that he was just getting BritBox and was asking for recommendations. Some shows that are very famous I'm less keen on, but doesn't mean to say you shouldn't have a look at some shows get played to death over here, and you get to the point where you don't really want to watch them. But if you've never seen them, Gary says, I was never a fan of Captain Kangaroo. I've heard of Captain Kangaroo. That was on kids' TV, wasn't it? Gary says, I like the Saturday PRIDE48 lineup today. Yeah, lots of good shows. Oh yes, Russell Crowe. Matt says yes, Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe was only in about 4 episodes of Neighbours before he was famous, and Guy Pearce was a regular for many years, and then came back. Was in the last 2 or 3 episodes, and pretty much stole the show. He was absolutely brilliant in it, and it was great to have his character back. And Toby needs to say it won't be long until the sun sets in the UK. You're not wrong there. Maybe Dealey will go to sleep. Yes, of course. Yes, Kylie was a big part of Neighbours, of course. I love Kylie. I think Toby and Lisa are drinking Kylie wine tonight. Matt says I have BritBox. It's awesome. I don't have it, but only because I have so many of the programs on DVD still. But sometimes I go over to friends' houses who have BritBox, and they sort of say, Paul, what would you watch? And usually I suggest obscure things like Sapphire and Steel or the Hammer House of Horror. Tend to go for weirder things. Bergerac, is that on BritBox? That's a detective show. Rosemary in Time is a favourite of mine. Have you seen Bergerac, if it's on there? Because Bergerac has it's written by a lot of people who wrote Doctor Who and actors who were in Doctor Who. Troby needs to say, Paul, would you have liked more Rent-A-Ghost? Now, Rent-A-Ghost is... Yes, I would. Rent-A-Ghost was a kids' show about ghostly characters. I think some of it is on BritBox, but... Cronehaven says, Fernando was marvellous, Yeti'S is marvellous. Oh, everything is marvellous. Oh, well, you're marvellous, Crone. I know I'm probably going to get cut off soon. I know that there are announcements and things, so I'll say goodbye now, just in case I get cut off. But anyway, it's been great to be here and to do a show, and I think I've covered most of the things I was going to discuss, but we could have had another quiz, but Yeti, Uncle John and Cromitty have now, the flat is flooded with their tears. But thank you very much for allowing me to talk about old TV. But Daniel says there are no announcements. You can run all the way to 3 p.m. We've got another 5 minutes, guys. Whoa! So yeah. So any other shows that you would love to have seen go on longer or come back? Matt says they tried to make an American Broadchurch and it was awful. Had a similar cast, and I didn't actually see the original Broadchurch, but even though it had David Tennant in and Olivia Colman, I know that David Tennant transferred to the American version because the guy Chris Chibnall, who did Torchwood and Doctor Who, and then later became the current producer of Doctor Who. That's another exciting thing. Things returning. Although Neighbours is nearly finished, it is finished now, I'm still very excited because in about 2 months' time we get to see the last episode of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor Who, and there are some returning characters that I'm very excited about. Tegan and Ace from the original show, Tegan being a Peter Davison companion and Ace being a Sylvester McCoy companion, and they appear, I'm not giving any spoilers, because they appeared in the trailer of the coming soon at the end of the most recently screened episode back at Easter. So I'm, as much as I'm sad about Neighbours finishing, I've still got Home and Away, another Australian soap. I've still got Doctor Who to look forward to, and from the sounds of it, we might even have some Doctor Who like around Christmas time. There are rumours floating around that that's what's being filmed now. It's not just for an anniversary special in 18 months' time. It's for something sooner. But I don't know anything. I just know what I hear, and it's all rumour at this moment. But there are lots of things to look forward to. So I don't know if that'll stop Yeti, Uncle John and Cromitty crying, but yeah. Yes, Matt says the original Broadchurch was wonderful. I love Olivia Colman. Yes, she's my queen. Have you seen her in Peep Show? That's where I first saw her. Of course, Olivia Colman was also in an episode of Doctor Who. I think she was in Matt Smith's first episode. Jodie was a wonderful Doctor Who. Yes, I love Jodie. I think I shall shed one or two tears there. Oh yes, well, Paul, if you want us to take over the show, then I don't think I'll be doing a show particularly. But anyway, thank you, Yeti Uncle John. Did you watch Netflix's The Crown? I think I've seen some early seasons. I don't think I've seen any episodes with her in. I first saw Yoswaz said I first saw her in Smack the Pony. I think I love Smack the Pony. That's a great show. Trebi needs to say thank you, Paul. Looking forward to the extra material in the podcast version. Yes, there will be a podcast version of this show going out maybe as soon as tomorrow or Monday. Those of you who listen to the show, I've done an interview, catch up with my friend Wifey Joe. That's going to appear as extra material on the podcast version of this episode when it goes out. But anyway, I hope you all have a great rest of the PRIDE48 streaming weekend 2022. And yes, Jodie, Olivia and David were all in Broadchurch. Yeah, I forgot that Jodie was in it as well. Yes, wasn't she a mother? But yeah. Well, I think that's almost all that we've got time for. But it's been great hanging out with you in the chat room, and great to see so many people. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the shows that are coming up next, and I hope to listen to some myself. But if I can't, I should be catching up with them on the podcast when they get released as podcasts, because obviously we're 5 hours ahead, so I don't think I've got the stamina to stay up to 6 a.m. anymore. But anyway, yes, Matt says yes, she was such amazing performances. Well, we really are running out of time, so thank you. I'm glad you're all here. And Matt says great job. Trebi say good night all, and good luck to the shows up next. Time for a cup of tea here. Yes, it's always a time for a cup of tea where we are. Yes. And yeah, I'll have to go and see if Yeti Uncle John and Cromitty are okay, and make sure that Yeti Uncle John doesn't start knocking back the fizzy mineral water. Okay. I don't know if I'm still on the stream, or whether Ding the Bell are arriving imminently, hopefully.
Well, listeners, that's all we've got time for. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope it went okay. I don't know quite what would have gone on. You'll have just heard me say goodbye, hopefully, after almost an hour of completely successful recording. If not, then I'll just have to restage the episode without an audience. But anyway, that's thinking the worst. Hopefully it went all right. Did you enjoy it? I hope I wasn't too emotional. I think I probably would have been. Yes. The end of Neighbours is something that you know, it's a show that I've watched for the last 10 years or more, and also used to watch as a child. So it has a very nostalgic connection for me. But I probably said that at least once already. Anyway, I hope Cromitty and Yeti Uncle John did their best to help me out. So, yeah. So that's it. Okay. That's the PRIDE48 live streaming event for 2022. Done and dusted. At least it is for my contribution. Okay. We'll be back again soon. We've got plenty of episodes in the can. And you take care. All right. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
I want Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
This show is part of the PRIDE48 network. Find more shows over at PRIDE48.com.
Oh dear, what's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Hello, Wifey Joe. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. You're going to be appearing. This is going to be appearing on a very special episode of the Shy Life podcast because fingers crossed. Well, in a couple of days' time, as we were talking now, we're taking part in the PRIDE48 live streaming event, which happens every year, and I think we're the first show to happen on the Saturday. And hopefully listeners will have heard that, and this will be appearing as a special extra at the end that people who listen to the show live won't hear, but obviously I put it out as a podcast and need something extra special. I hope it went okay. If it didn't, I would have recreated it in some form anyway. So there will be a show that I consider to be, but I think it should go okay. I had some problems with sort of setting up I used to do live shows all the time and it used to be fine, but of late, last time we did it, I did the show with Nick, and it kept cutting out every 30 seconds, and in the end, they had to save me via Skype somehow. So I tried it. Yeah, I did a test yesterday, and it was doing the same thing. And I thought, I don't know what's changed since I used to do it regularly. But I contacted them ahead and said, you might need to just rescue me via Skype if you can immediately, so that we don't have all the faffing around where it keeps cutting out every 30 seconds. It's very disconcerting for the listeners, and it's disconcerting for us.
Yeah.
Although I'm not, because of train strikes, I was hoping to do the show with Nick, and I had to do it by myself. But listeners will have heard it by now. But it'll be the day after the last episode of Neighbours, so I should probably be emotionally distraught. So,
oh dear, yeah. Are you all primed to watch that?
Yeah, oh yes, I've been a regular watcher for the last 10 years probably. With a big gap between when I used to watch it when I was at school, but yeah, they're really going for. Every day there's and so else, the Hollywood star who used to be in Neighbours is going to be a guest. We've got guys.
So has this last episode been broadcast in Australia yet?
As we speak, they've just got a day ahead of us. So they've just shown it. They will have shown it, but we haven't seen it. We've got at the time of speaking, we've got one episode, like a normal length episode, and then there's 2 episodes tomorrow. One at lunchtime, and then an hour one at 9:00. But at the end of the episode I saw today, Guy Pearce was. Oh gosh! And then Kylie and Jason are back in the very last episode. But there's there's 1 or 2 people who are sort of more a bit younger than them, who are sort of Hollywood people who are coming back, and they've already said that Madge is coming back as a ghost, but she'd already come back as a ghost before. But I suspect there's potential.
Still alive. I thought she died.
No, Mrs. Mangles died, but and Helen.
Oh well, yeah, Mrs. Mangles died. I haven't seen Neighbours since I was at school. So I wouldn't know any more up to date characters or anything.
It's funny you say that though, because over the last 5 years, they've slowly brought back people from the Kylie, Jason. Would you have been watching it then, or would it have been a bit later than that?
I was watching it with the whole Kylie and Jason thing.
So do you remember Jane, who was Mrs. Mangles' granddaughter?
Yeah. I remember Jane.
But she started coming back as a guest about 3 or 4 years ago, and she's been a regular cast member again for the last 2 years. They brought in her daughter. They brought in her daughter, who's a gay character. Who Mrs. Mangle, although you didn't see Mrs. Mangle again, apparently Jane was okay with her daughter, but she was fearful for what Mrs. Mangle would
say if she found out that that would cause tension between that mother and daughter, and so they've given her plenty of things to do, and the daughter character was a very good sort of good. Is she good? Is she evil? Or what's she doing? Type character as well, and Clive the Doctor, who was in it around that time.
Clive. I remember the name.
He was sort of ginger-haired guy, quite a bit played quite a lot of pranks, dressed up in a gorilla costume.
Who was the guy who he was married, but he lost his wife, and then like the babysitter started Bronwyn or something like that. Bronwyn, and then
they did name check her. She's not been in it.
Okay.
But there's Bronwyn, and she had a sister. I've forgotten her name. But they have been doing everything. They've done such a good job, knowing that in advance that it was finishing. They've dropped so many little names and little from the very early days, Shane Ramsey. He's come back and has bought the hotel off Paul Robinson. Paul Robinson went away and then came back years ago. He's been back for about 20 years, but Shane's not been in it since about 1986 or something. I mean, we were 18 months, 2 years behind when we were seeing it in the UK. So, Shane, in a scene today, he bought a new car and he's nicknamed it Bouncer, just after the dog that there was.
After the dog, yes.
So there's a million little things like Easter eggs and things that some people would just pass them by, but it's been really good fun. But yeah, there's been lots, because I started watching again because I knew that somebody from Prisoner Cell Block H was going to be making a cameo, so I thought I'd just watch her episodes. And then soon after, another member of Prisoner joined the cast and then stayed for years and years. So by then I was hooked, but I hadn't watched it for ages. I do watch Home and Away as well. And now that's the only one that's going to be left now, the Australian one. But, I mean, it's made me really cross because they've kind of said, "Oh, we're trying to be investing in more UK TV." I don't watch Channel 5 for UK TV. I want to see Neighbours. I want to see Australian soap opera. I want a cliffhanger every 25 minutes. I don't care what you spend the money on. If you're not spending on, I won't be watching. You're not. People don't. I mean, certainly we don't have the TV on all the day. There are shows we like. We'll turn it on and then we'll turn it off. We won't just sort of go, "Oh, we might see that." I've got thousands of DVDs. I don't need to be just hanging on loosely to some. And my mum, I did try and say to my mum, because she watches Neighbours and has from the start, that she should try Home and Away, because the reason she likes watching it is the same reason as I do, is escapism. We want to see the Australian beaches or the nice weather or just something different than drab old Britain. Just something that's not the UK. I don't want to see. I see Britain outside my window.
I want to see something else. But it's a bit of escapism, sunshine, beach, flip flops.
Yeah, I mean, we have the Disney Channel. We got it because there was a really good documentary about the Beatles. The Let It Be thing, and it was like every episode was like 3 hours long. But it was actually fascinating watching it. I didn't sit and watch 3 hours, and I'd watch for an hour, and then I'd watch another. And just seeing Paul McCartney sit down and kind of, let's do a song. Let it be. And suddenly this famous song would just slowly emerge in front of you. It was fascinating. But you need to be a big fan probably to cope with it. But then we had Disney Channel for a year, and the things I've watched haven't been the Disney films or the Avengers blockbusters. I've just watched a really interesting Italian show based on some film I'd never heard of. It's about a man and a woman. It's called The Ignorant Angels, and it's about a man and a woman who discover, the woman is married to this man, and the other man had been having a gay affair with him, but he didn't realize he was married. He knew he might have another life. But then it's all about the house that the gay guy lives in, and all the different characters, and the episodes go through. You find out about their stories as well, and the man and the woman who were left after the husband dies become friends
because they realise they have stuff in common, and it was really interesting, and you get to see Italy, and subtitles fine. It's set somewhere interesting and different, and so Disney Channel's got lots of stuff on it, which I'm not an advert for Disney Channel, but yeah, there is stuff on there that I was quite surprised. That sounds interesting. I didn't know that was on there. But anyway, what have you been up to other than I've been talking? You've been you're in Cheltenham at the moment, is that right?
I am at the moment. We're having some decorating done, and because it's very difficult for Rob to get sort of time to be here to let people in and all that kind of thing, and to answer any questions and that kind of thing. So I have worked from home, but worked from my t'other home, as it were. So I've been here. So this is why in the background I've got these decorating pots, and it's a very sexy backdrop today. But yeah, he's nearly finished, so that's good. So that's exciting. Saturday, I think we're going to go and order a new sofa. Ooh. Because the bottom's fallen out of this one. I can barely get up. I'm going to roll off of it rather than stand up off of it. So
we've got
very exciting.
Because I sit one end of my sofa, and it's kind of there's nothing actually wrong with the sofa, but I have to have a cushion sort of to bolster up a bit, because I've sat on it constantly, particularly with lockdown and stuff. I've sat in this chair so much in the same seat for months on end.
Yes, but it's just taken a bit more of a hammering, isn't it, over the lockdowns and everything. So that's exciting. So it's been nice to have Spencer back doing some decorating. He's very young, very tattooed. Very nice chap. Really, just in case you should ever happen to listen to this, I severely doubt it, but just in case he does, I highly recommend him. And he likes to listen to absolute classic rock radio. So I'm perched in my bed. I'm too old to sit on my bed all day. I tell you, I'm stiff as a board. So I've been working in the bedroom while he's been doing the sort of lounge dining room. And I've been very much sidetracked by his listening choices on the radio. Pretty much still word perfect on most of it. Lovely. And then I remember, I'm supposed to do some work. So I do put an audiobook on my phone just to sort of try and block it out,
Yeah,
I've got the attention span of a moth, I'm just like...
I've got so much music on my phone and podcasts and all sorts of things. And I've got some talking books, and it's just a matter of getting round to it, because when I'm doing, say, my editing, there are times when I'm mucking around with files and putting them in the right order, I can be listening to a podcast. But obviously, if I'm doing the podcast, I need to be listening to the podcast. It's sort of finding the time for it. Although I usually start my day by reading for an hour or two, and which brings me around to the I won't say the name of the village, but I was reading Celia Imrie's autobiography, which was written about 10 years ago, and she was mentioning. I was recognising a lot of it, because she sort of comes from Guildford, so she was mentioning Camberley, and she was mentioning. I think she mentioned Byfleet. I presume that's the one near me, and then she mentioned the name of the village where you grew up, and so it was all quite familiar, and I was like. It always makes me sort of think, if I ever bump into her, if that's something, she's probably not going to be at. I have bumped into actors and stuff at conventions, but I don't. She has done a Doctor Who, but I don't think she was in it enough to turn up for
a convention appearance,
unless she particularly fancied it. And I don't really do conventions these days anyway. But yeah, I was sort of. Like, oh, she's a local.
Yes, she is. She did. She was on the BBC show "Who Do You Think You Are?"
Yes,
however many series ago, and that opened with a bit of that village, and then as you say, the wider area, Guildford and places like that were mentioned and stuff.
Toby's been watching that. Toby's been watching that show a lot, actually. Most mornings he's like, "Oh, I was watching that one last night," or "I was watching that one," and. He's watched quite a few where you always think they wish they had done it, because the stuff that's uncovered has been sort of like, ooh, I'm not sure I guess if they really didn't want people to know, they could say, if you find out this, we don't even want you to discuss it. But yeah, he's seen more episodes where there's been kind of bad news than good news.
Yes. Some have had a few rude shocks, which is quite interesting. I was watching have you come across, speaking of Australia, have you come across the Australian, I think he's a comedian and TV presenter, Adam Hills? He does The Last Leg on Channel 4.
I sort of heard the name, but I don't recently. Yeah.
And I was watching some clips of him on YouTube, and he has his disabilities. He only has one leg, essentially. And he has a prosthetic foot. And, he took part in the Australian version of Who Do You Think You Are, apparently. And he found out that generations back on one or t'other side of his family, a relative was a pirate. And he totally missed the connection until after they'd finished filming. And he sort of said, I don't believe, as a comedian, I've just missed this opportunity with one leg. I've just missed this opportunity to milk the situation.
Talking about Australians and leg issues. Paul Robinson on Neighbours, going back to Neighbours, in about 2000 and something, had a plot line where his leg was damaged or was blown off or something. I never saw the episode, but I know. So basically, for the last 18 years, he's had to play Paul Robinson as if he slightly limps. So you have to, but obviously the actor doesn't have any issues with mobility. He has to remember to limp like every scene he's in, just as part of the characters, which must be quite a. I guess that could potentially affect your own gait or stance if you're doing, walking.
People with as you know yourself, anybody with a mobility problem of some description, once your walking gait alters, it starts to cause all other sorts of problems. So if he's spending a fair amount of his day feigning a limp, I've got to remember to limp on the right side.
Yes. Yeah. How have you been surviving the summer weather? Have you got any tips for avoiding the heat? I've got a fan. I've turned it off at the moment.
Yeah. We have fans. Work is actually, my office isn't too bad. It's just stuffy. It doesn't get the sun till later in the day, but the heat does build up quite a lot. But I've got only 1 out of 4 windows in my office opens because the rest have all been painted shut by some numpty. I know, it's worse than the civil service. So it's only a little flappy window rather than the main window, which is annoying, but it does have a shade, so at least I can put that down. So yeah, at home my my bedroom is south facing, so that's curtains drawn, windows shut until into the evening, and it's just been horrible, really. I've got the thinnest of thin clothes on the really hot days. The other Monday that was really hot, I worked from home simply on the basis that I could wear this tatty old caftan that's so thin you could probably almost see through it. It's just awful, but it's nice and cool. And I thought, well, I can't wear that to work, but I can slob around at home in it. And if by some reason I need to do a video call, I could just slip something on instead.
Have you seen any? I know last time we talked about that less than good Hercule Poirot film, but I think from what we said already before we started recording, you've not necessarily been to the cinema, but have you seen any films on TV or like DVDs or
I haven't really, to be honest. In the summer, I'm a bit of an outdoor bunny. I'm often outdoors doing stuff, so I don't really watch an awful lot of film and TV and stuff. That tends to mostly be an out of season occupation.
There was one weekend when I don't know if listeners, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but I was having rheumatism issues, which meant I couldn't play Fortnite, which is the computer game I play with my friends, Toby and Warren, because it was affecting my wrist and just wasn't comfortable. I wasn't even for one day. I was able to do little bits of editing, maybe not for the hours I usually do, but there was one day I was like, I can't do any of that. I watched 4 films in one day, which is like, usually I kind of like watch a film or maybe 2 films. That's about the maximum I watch in one. But there was one day I was like, well, I can't do anything. I can't even really hold my phone to because I read a lot of books on my phone.
Yeah.
And I just watched film after film. Did you say you went to see somebody sing? Did you?
Oh, I went to see Kate Busby in May, end of May. That was a long postponed concert. She's released another 2 or 3 albums since the gig that was supposed to sort of happen. You know, it was actually during the first lockdown, I think, that gig was supposed to be, and they tried to reschedule it, and of course it got cancelled. So we finally made it, and that was weird. You know, we were talking about ice cream earlier.
Oh yes.
And they've started selling at that theatre. They've started selling Jude's ice cream, which I've had before, and I had I think it was a limited edition flavour, and it was, I think it was coconut. I like coconut, right? Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. So I had that, and I opened the tub, and the ice cream was black.
Oh, that's not right.
I know. It was, I can't remember what it was. It had like volcanic ash or something in it. It was a bit random. But it was very nice. It was nice. But I said to Rob, after I'd eaten it, I said, do you think my tongue is black? So he said, let's have a look then. So I'm in the middle of the theatre and just going, nah, you know. Yeah. And he said, yep. So I took a photograph of it. And it's like, do you remember blackjacks from when you were a kid, those little penny sweets? Yeah, it looked like I'd had a couple of those on the go. My tongue was just black. It was bizarre. If I see some more, I'm going to try some. But it was, I think it was coconut. It was totally unexpected shade. But yeah.
Listeners, Joe and I we were talking about ice cream before you showed up, and we were kind of in agreement that there's a bit of a bias towards chocolate and toffee type ice creams, and that some of the nicer ones are actually the fruity ones, or something like cherry, or and we were saying that I find my sweet tooth is still there, but it's not a chocolate cake with chocolate on chocolate on chocolate. That's too much. And also, some of the, I quite like orange squash, but a lot of since we've got this sugar tax, there's lots of these drinks with. I don't need my orange squash or my grapefruit squash to be very strong, but I like having that. Otherwise, I'm just drinking water because I don't drink fizzy drinks really anymore. And I don't want. I would rather pay the extra 50p for the sugar tax. I literally don't want to drink anything with fake sugar in it. Doesn't all you taste is fake sugar. And I'm surprised more people haven't just gone, well, we're not buying it now, and they've had, and you'd think that the companies had to go, okay, let's go back to because it's just been harder to find squash with proper sugar in it. I guess it's just because some kid somewhere has been filling half a glass with squash before they put the water in or something.
I don't know. People do tend to have squash far too strong.
Yeah. I like it quite.
I don't drink it too strong. It's just
no, you don't want it.
It's too much. It's too much.
I was before we're going to have to go in a minute, but I was going to say I've seen a lot of films, but I was thinking the nearest thing I've been to a show over lockdown. I went to quite a few. I went to, say, I don't know, Joanna Lumley talking to somebody, or so-and-so talking, Dawn French I saw talking about her latest book, and paying a £5 or something, and that was all quite fun. And I saw Kylie do some show that was a very well-produced, it could have been on the TV, but it was an exclusive at the time, and I enjoyed sort of sitting at home, not having to go into to town, and you've got front row seats effectively. If that Kylie show had been, I'd been there, I'd have been some seat right at the back, and I would have know which one is Kylie's.
Yes.
Whereas you're seeing it, or like or you're seeing Dawn French very close up, or you're seeing a lovely like on a TV show. I'm quite fine with that. And this week, I saw Jarvis Cocker talking about his book he'd written, which was I already read the book, so in a way, I didn't get as much out of it because he was kind of worked probably quite well as a promotion for the book if you hadn't read it. But a lot of it I was going, yeah, I know all this from the book. But it was still nice hearing him talk a bit about it. But and it was only a £5. I don't think I would have wanted to trek all the way into town and pay £20 to be there, although you would have been able to have got a book signed. But it was. I like this online way of going to shows, and I know that isn't good for the theatres and it's not good for the. But there were obviously people you could see the audience. I think some of these ones I saw, say the Joanna Lumley ones, or the back in lockdown, there was nobody else in the theatre because you couldn't have. Whereas,
you couldn't have them.
Yeah, but with the Jarvis one, you could see that the theatre was wherever they were doing it, that there were plenty of people in the audience, so you didn't feel. I mean, I didn't feel bad with the Joanna Lumley ones. There was no other way. But I might have felt bad if it looked like nobody had bothered to turn up. But they clearly had, and it was nice. Again, it's this front row seat thing. If you'd been there in person and you'd been further back, you wouldn't have seen. You wouldn't have seen as much. So I quite enjoyed that, and it seemed like a good use of fibre. But the book is all about the fact that he's a hoarder, and for years he's collected things like, is it Cussons soap or Cussons soap, isn't it?
Soap, yeah.
He has like a bar of Cussons soap, or what's left of a bar of Cussons soap from 1989, because he loved the logo and they changed the logo, so he kept the last
packet,
and things like that, and the sort of things he kept. Some of the things he kept were like, the beginnings of his idea for doing pulp, or like or a logo or whatever. So some of it was more useful, and some of it was more like a shirt that somebody gave him in 1978, which he didn't have but it makes for because a lot of it made for a good springboard for stories. He wasn't a traditional autobiography, but he'd sort of take us into his loft and go, oh, this t-shirt, this shirt, oh, that reminds me of and then you get a little story off it, or and it was it was good. And he brought some of the stuff along to this show in person. He brought the little bit of custom soap along in a black bag. Most people, they kind of come onto the stage, and he came onto the stage, but with his black bin bag. It was like a bin bag. But yeah, I mean, I think there's probably the book sort of only took us up into the mid 80s before when pulp existed, but they weren't famous. So I think there's probably another book in it, at least, if we can get around to it. But
excellent.
Anyway, well, it's been good to catch up.
I'd better go. Yeah, good to see you. Nice to have a chat.
Yeah, and we'll speak again. I'm sure that say hello to the listeners directly, because they like to.
Hello, listeners. How are you? There's a seagull in the background. I don't know if you can hear that.
Joe's our very own Joanna Lumley. She's our own person. She has the same class, and but that, listeners, you know.
Shame I don't have her good looks, talent, figure, etc., etc. Face for radio, me.
I have all of that. I have all of it and more. Anyway, well, we'll speak to you again soon, and it's been good to catch up.
Yes, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, kitty, kitty. Oh, I love Dee.
I'm a bit confused by this, Paul. We're recording this for the end of the show, after a show we've not yet done. And you're talking about Neighbours having been finished, and yet it's still a couple of days away from being finished. Yes, Uncle John, yes, I accept that. I just wanted to have everything ready in advance. Yeah, but you're putting this bit either side of what we do in a couple of days' time. Yes. And the listeners who are listening live won't hear this bit. Only the podcast listeners. All right, so this is extra material. Well, I guess it is extra material in a way, yes. But, look, we've got to go now anyway. We're keeping this deliberately short, for a change. It does make a change. Yeah, I thought you had lots of extra bits and pieces. We don't really have any extra bits and pieces to put in this show, I don't think. Oh, we've got a Dealey. Dealey, you coming here for an exclusive interview? Yeah? How did the live PRIDE48, the PRIDE48 live streaming event 2022 go for you? Don't worry, it's not happened yet, but it has happened, depending which way you look at things. Yes. Did you listen to any other shows? You're meant to, not just the Shy Life podcast. You're meant to listen to other shows too. Yes, you are. I know Toppy Smelly's not doing it this year, but, sometimes people get busy. And Toppy's had a lot on his plate of late. What with August Evans popping over every 5 minutes. But anyway. And all the other things have been going on. What about Sassy? Baby Sassy. That's taken up a lot of his time. Yes. And his operation. And he needs you to go over their deals. You need to go and look after Toppy and be his personal nursemaid or butler or something. Toppy, you don't want that. Deals is a really hard taskmaster. On your deals. I'm getting a look now. Well, Paul, that went well. I think you did a good show. I didn't get at all emotional about the end of Neighbours. No, Paul, you did not. Paul, how do we know? It's not happened yet. I know. It's a funny way of doing things, but as soon as we've done the live show, I want it to be ready to be edited. Yes, all right. So the introduction and the goodbyes have all been done before the actual show. Really, Paul, it doesn't make any sense, but I accept what we are doing. It does mean that I'm expected to praise you for how good you were, and in fact you might have been a total nightmare. Me? A total nightmare? No. It's fine. I'm sure it all went well. I'm sure the listeners would have loved it, and I would have really held things together and not let my emotions get the better of me. Well, Paul, if you're sure. I know you are very attached to the program Neighbours. Yeah. I mean, Kylie and Jason are coming back for the last episode. Yes, Paul, I understand. I know Tallulah is a big fan too. Tallulah is a very big fan. She was devastated. Or she'll be devastated. I mean, she's devastated by the knowledge that it's finishing after 37 years. Those horrible TV people. Yes, Paul, I understand. It is very upsetting. I had a favourite programme once, and it was ended. And, I was very upset for at least 3 hours. Were you? What was this programme? It was a programme called Stars in Their Underpants. Stars in Their Underpants? It's not a soap opera then. No, Paul, it was a sort of documentary show. I've never heard of Stars in Your Underpants. Were there actual stars in their underpants? Well, some of them wore trousers, but yes, there were many stars that were in their underpants. Really, I can imagine. How long did it run for? You must have been devastated when it ended. Oh, it ran for at least a season. Yes, and then it was axed because I think only I was watching. Oh dear, Cromarty. So not to the level of success of Neighbours. No, Paul, I'm afraid not. Oh, golly. So what sort of stars did they get for stars in their underpants or on their, whatever it's called? There were some stars. You may not have heard of them. They were quite localised. Oh, so not really stars in their underpants at all, just random people who have some limited level of celebrity in their underpants. Yes, Paul, pretty much. Do you think I'd find any episodes on YouTube? I doubt it, Paul. I don't think anybody likes to talk about it. Only me. I love it. Do you have copies? I do. I kept copies. I had them digitized. If you want, we can have a marathon evening. A marathon evening. Yeah, okay. How many episodes? there are 3 episodes. 3 episodes of Stars in Their Underpants. And he got axed. And, oh dear, it's not even comparable. Well, it's time to go, Cromitty. Oh dear, I'm sorry, Paul. I was trying to empathise. Well, you didn't pick a very good example. It must be some other programme that you liked that actually had a bit more history to it. I'll think about it, Paul. I can let you know. Yeah, let us know. By the time of the next Chatterbox, we'll do one in the next few weeks. Okay, Paul. Right, yes, I'll remember. I'll have a think. Okay, Cromitty. Okay, time to go. Time to go, Paul. Time to go. It really was a great show, though. Stars in the Underpants. I cried at the last episode. Oh, Cromitty. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tease you. It's okay, Paul. Nobody understands about Stars in the Underpants. No, clearly. Right, come on, let's go.
This is just the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
What the hell just happened on this show? I mean, seriously, reverse it, because I lost it. What's going on? What happened? 557.
557. And now a choice on BBC Two, 557 or 557.
Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye for now. Bye.